If you're only giving, if you're only doing something so that they'll do something for you, people sense it and they don't like it. Because that's not what a friendship should be. That's not what a relationship should be, right? I should be doing these things because I get joy in seeing the joy it provides to you. That's the basis of a healthy relationship. And what I'm going to suggest to you is it's the exact same thing with your customers, with your audience. They will sense if you're giving simply to get. If you're giving so that, they will know, and it won't work. It's when you get to the point that in your mind say, I am giving because I want to give, because I want you to succeed regardless of whether you give me $1 ever. That's when people are drawn to you, and people will do it, and people will say, oh my God, I want to be in this person's world. Welcome to the Certified Badass Online Marketing Podcast, where being a badass has less to do with what you wear and what music you listen to, and everything to do with whether you've got the thriving online business of your dreams. I'm your renegade thinking Harvard Law grad turned online entrepreneur host, Bobby Klink. In my years building my thriving business, the most important lesson I've learned is that being a badass online marketer isn't about secret strategies or ninja tactics. It's about doing the basic stuff right and showing the F up. So each week here on the show, you'll get clear, easy to execute guidance on how to build your online business and a swift kick in the ass or two to make sure you're getting it done. Hey there, welcome to episode 188 of the Certified Badass Online Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Klink, and I'm excited for today's show because we're going to be talking about my favorite subject. Candidly, it's one of my core values, and it's one of the things that I hold most dear. And as I've kind of built my businesses and I've really thought about the biggest things that I've done in my business and the core value that really shapes everything I do more than anything else, it's the one we're talking about today. And specifically, we're going to be talking about the concept of being a radical giver. So I'm calling this episode Radical Giving Redux. And I did an episode before about radical giving back in the 140s somewhere where I talked about this concept. And I've talked about it in various places, but candidly, this is the kind of thing that evolves, it changes. And I wanted to talk about it again today. And I wanted to talk about what I think of and how I see radical giving today, and then also give you some updates. At the beginning of the year, or maybe it was the end of last year, I had an episode where I talked about my plan for this year, and I talked about one of the things that I had a goal for was the amount of value I was going to give away. And so I want to report that and then give you an idea of what my plans are for next year. So I'm going to do that, but we're going to start by kind of diving into the value of radical giving, the idea. If this is the first time you're hearing me talk about it, I want you to hear what it is and why it's so important. But before we dive in, this episode is brought to you by my new 100% free training program, BADA Online Marketing University. It is my team and I's answer to the problem of death by 1,000 courses for online entrepreneurs. If you know what I'm talking about, I think that immediately resonates with you. If you don't, let me explain it a bit. I know a lot of entrepreneurs who have great ideas, but they've been chewed up and spit out by our industry because they've bought a course for $1,000 and then another one for $2,000 and then another one for $1,000 over here and then $3,000 and $2,500. And they've gone down this road over and over again, and they've been doing it based upon a belief that each course, this is the one I really, really need. This is the thing that's going to solve all of my problems. And then what happens is a lot of times they don't even end up using that strategy or tactic, but they've already spent $1,000 or multiple thousands of dollars on it. And we don't think that's right. We don't think you should have to spend $1,000 to really figure out whether a strategy is right for you. And so we have created BADA Online Marketing University to be the place where online entrepreneurs get their basic training on all the things. Now, right now, as I'm recording this, there's one course in there called Online Marketing Foundations, which walks you through the way that we view marketing, that you should market, et cetera. So we that's what's in this existing course. But after this, after I record this in the coming months, we're going to add a course about online messaging foundations, online copywriting foundations, list building foundations. Since I'm the legal guy still, we're going to have online legal foundations. And then later on, we're going to add course creation foundations, beta launch foundations, and so many more storytelling foundations, content marketing foundations, all of these things so you can get the understanding of all the things you need to be doing as an entrepreneur. And it's 100% free. Yeah, free. I'm not charging anything. There's no upsell. There's no tricks. There's no gimmicks. It's part of my radical giving. You can sign up by heading to bobbyklink.com/bombu. If you're one of my listeners and you're already in it and you're loving it, do me a favor. Tell your friends about it. Send your friends to bobbyklink.com/bombu. Again, it doesn't make me any money, but I want people to have this information and to build their businesses. So now with that, let's dive into today's episode. And I want to start for people who, if you've been in my audience for a while, hopefully you've heard me talk about radical giving, but even for you, I'm hoping that this part I'm going to talk about first will be a good refresher and help you kind of bring to mind what this is. If you're new to my audience, if you haven't heard me talk about radical giving and really go deep on it, I want you to understand the concept of radical giving. And it's a very different concept from giving that you hear most people talking about. Most entrepreneurs talk about giving as something you do to create reciprocity, as something that you're doing as a tactic, and they view giving very tactically. So you get very tactical questions like, well, how much of your information should you give away, and how much should you hold back for your paid program? So you have people creating rules like, well, you give away the what, but not the how, and things like that. And that's very tactical giving. That is not what we're talking about here. Radical giving is something different entirely. It's the concept of giving not as a tactic, not because you expect to get anything back, but giving for giving's sake alone. And what I like to say is this is a concept that I learned from my pastor at my church. And, it's something I guess I'd always known, but there was a message when he was preaching on December 31st, 2017. He gave this message and it changed my life and it changed my business forever. See, before that, I was a lawyer. I was trying to be an entrepreneur, but most people would say that my personality was kind of like, a sourpuss. I was the no person. I was the prototypical lawyer who found problems, who was always negative. That's who I was. Now, I was trying to build this online business and it had been a flop. In 2017, I had spent about $50,000 on all the things between hiring an agency to get me booked on podcasts, software, getting myself training and coaching on the software, Facebook ads, a Facebook ads manager, and I could go on and on. And so I'd spent all this money and I knew the tactics, I knew the strategies, and I'm pretty good on my feet. And so I had this course that I'd created called Safeguard Your Online Genius. I was excited. I was like, this is awesome. It's going to work. And I had a webinar and I used kind of a framework from one of the well-established frameworks. And I got copy for it and slide copy created by this software that would help you create that stuff based upon templates. And I was like, this is going to be awesome. And I got up there and I performed and it flopped. I made one sale total between the webinar and the follow-up for $629 or $647. I don't remember how much exactly. It was in the 600s. And the woman then asked for a refund on day 29 of a 30-day refund policy, never having opened the course. So this is where I was, $50,000 in the red at the end of 2017. And I was ashamed. I was ashamed because I hadn't told my wife, how much I had really kind of invested and almost mortgaged our future on this whole online business thing instead of the lawyer thing. I was feeling dejected and feeling like a failure because I was like, what's wrong with me? I see other people doing, but what's wrong with me? Because why isn't it working for me? And I followed the guidance. I followed the steps they told me to take. I used this webinar framework that they said I'm supposed to use. I used this software. What's wrong with me that it's not working for me? So that's where I found myself at the end of 2017. Ashamed, dejected, in despair, thinking I was going to basically have to go back to my job as a lawyer, which I didn't like. I didn't want to be a lawyer. And I say my job, I had my own law firm, but I didn't like practicing law as I was doing it. But that's where I found myself. And then I heard my pastor's message. And the importance of his message wasn't about giving to help other people. And that's why I think it finally touched me. He was talking about the power of giving and how it impacts you when you give. He was talking about the notion that when you give, it will change you as a person and it will have profound implications. And I'll be honest with you, I kind of thought, okay, sure. I was a bit skeptical, but in typical fire, ready, aim fashion that I tend to go with, I said, okay, fine. I'm going to make giving my word of the year for 2018. And so I said, I'm going to give. I didn't know what that meant at the time. I didn't know how I was going to do it. But I said, okay, I'm going to give myself a shot to make this work, and I'm going to give. And damn if my pastor wasn't right. It changed me. It changed me as a person. It changed my life. It changed so many things. And so I started by just giving of knowledge and giving of information and being supportive and just doing those things in groups I was in, among other entrepreneurs, etc. And I found that I liked it. And so from like the beginning of January 2018 until mid-February, there was a fundamental shift in who I was. And I'm not talking about this and just kind of, spouting this and I have no real way to think about it or anything like that. My wife and my friends commented on how I had changed. They were like, "You're different. What's going on with you? Why are you?" And again, they were happy, but it was like I had become this different person because, and they didn't know why, but I did. It was because I had kind of embarked on this notion of giving. And when I say embarked on a notion of giving, I really had embraced the notion of finding the joy just in giving, finding the joy in helping other people, not because I thought they were going to give me something back, not because they were going to get on my list, not because of anything else, simply saying, I want to help you. And the notion that I'm serving you gives me joy. And that was what I did. And I did it without expectation. And, over the following months after that, I gave in ways that most people would say were insane. But these giving things were actually kind of small. But examples, I was in a Facebook group with 1,000 people who were other entrepreneurs and they were struggling. And I was creating freebies related to the legal stuff for online entrepreneurs. And I asked the admin of the group, I said, hey, I don't want to put in an opt-in, but can I just load up my PDF and give it to them? The admin at the time was a bit confused, I think, because I was like, wait, you don't want an opt-in? I was like, no. I was like, I'm just going to, put the PDF because I think it's helpful for them. I think this will help them make sure that they're doing things right legally. And so the admin gave me permission and I did. And I gave multiple PDFs. I don't remember all of them, but they were PDFs that I had created to help entrepreneurs. And I just put it in the group. Gave it to these people to download, to protect themselves, to help themselves, and download it. Not for me. I had nothing, no tracking or anything. But you think about that. Most people would say that's a preposterous idea. Like, why would you do that? Why would you be willing to give someone that without requiring an opt-in? Well, because I was engaging in giving the right way, joyfully and without expectation. Now, at the time, I didn't call it radical giving. Nowadays, I call it radical giving because it is radical under anyone else's notion. If you look at what people are teaching you in giving when it comes to business, etc., even like my favorite book, when you look at like The Go-Giver and all those things, the reality is that most people would say what I was doing was just dumb and insane. And it was pretty radical. But it has changed my life. Now, among other things, when you do that, because it changed me, I became magnetic as a person. People who I had given things to for free wanted to get on my list, even though they didn't need to, even though they already had my stuff. They went and got on my list. People who saw this in me said, this is someone who I want to be in that person's world. And so they came to me. And it was all because I didn't have a tactic. I didn't have a strategy, and I didn't have that. And what I want you to get is I'm going to talk about how it has impacted my business, but this is an inception, mind-bending concept. Because if you say, oh, well, Bobby says giving is going to make me rich, so I'm going to give so that I can be rich, it's not going to work. because people will sense that's why you're doing it. And there's this story I like to tell that the life coach, if you've heard my story, I got into online entrepreneurship because I was working with a life coach, but she styled herself as someone who helped professional men improve their relationship with their wives or long-term partners. And one of the things she talks about is that men often bargain for sex. And again, I apologize if this is, a bit crude for you, but she talked about that, how men will basically say, well, I'll do the dishes so that. I mean, and they don't literally say it to their wives, but that's what they're doing. It is a quid pro quo. It's, I'm going to be nice to you so that you will give me the thing that I want. And she had taught me in personal relationships, I had seen this and I had recognized it, and I said, well, yeah, I get it. And once you realize that, you kind of recognize, whether it's in a friendship, a romantic relationship, or anything else, if you're only giving, if you're only doing something so that they'll do something for you, people sense it and they don't like it. Because that's not what a friendship should be. That's not what a relationship should be, right? I should be doing these things because I get joy in seeing the joy it provides to you. That's the basis of a healthy relationship. And what I'm going to suggest to you is it's the exact same thing with your customers, with your audience. They will sense if you're giving simply to get. If you're giving so that, they will know, and it won't work. It's when you get to the point that in your mind say, I am giving because I want to give, because I want you to succeed regardless of whether you give me $1 ever. That's when people are drawn to you. And people will do it, and people will say, oh my God, I want to be in this person's world. So I want to be clear. It's weird. You have to get past it, and it's mind-bending because I'm going to tell you the benefits so that I hope that maybe you will take some steps, if you haven't yet, to being a radical giver and see what happens. But I'll talk about some of the ways that me being a radical giver shifted my business and my life. Because my business is so different because I did that. I mentioned those people who were in that Facebook group with me came to my group came to my list, and they were like, you already gave me this stuff, but I want to be on your list. And I want to be in your world. And so there was that piece. I built my audience that way. But also big name people noticed me giving, the person who ran that group noticed, had me, become a guest teacher, had me on her podcast, which, grew my list like almost overnight from like 800 to 4,000. But it wasn't just her. Other people heard that I was creating a free training about GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, or I had, whereas most lawyers were trying to use it as an opportunity to make people buy stuff and scare them. And so they were like, whoa. So they had me on their podcast. And so because I had embarked on this idea of being a radical giver and simply giving things to help people, I got noticed. I stood out from the crowd, and people said, that's the kind of person I want to introduce to my audience. So it improved this kind of relationship with peers, but it also got the people into my world. And so when I had done this, I mentioned I had been $50,000 in the red in 2017. Well, in 2018, in May, I made over $70,000 in revenue. And it was from the people in that audience, in that Facebook group, and others who heard about me, who saw me giving, came to my world, and then bought from me. But it's changed things even more significantly since then, because I have stepped into giving even more and in even more radical, more preposterous ways. I now have a raving fan base of people who will tell everyone in the world, well, if you need legal stuff, go to that guy. And now it's like, because I'm a business coach, if you want to understand how to market right, go to him. And people do that because they have sensed my heart, and they know that they can trust that I will care for their friends, for their peers, for the other people that they care about. Think about that for a second. I don't know about you, but I don't want to send someone that I care about to someone else's world, to another, kind of guru or anyone like that, unless I'm pretty darn sure that that person's going to take care of my friend, my peer, because I care about them. And that's what I want you to get, is that when you adopt radical giving, people will simply say, I don't know what he's always going to do, but I always know that Bobby is going to take care of his people. So I don't have to think twice about sending my audience, my friends, over to Bobby's world. That's part of why it makes you magnetic, because it makes it easy for people to refer other people to you. Nowadays, it's to the point that I often get tagged like in various Facebook groups and posts, etc., when people are having discussions about things and they say, well, Bobby's doing it the right way. You might want to go check him out. And it's funny, it happened to me yesterday where there was a big brouhaha in a Facebook group about something, and someone literally posted that it was just what this person was doing was they didn't like it, and literally said something of the effect of, I'm in the marketing industry and I find the whole industry slimy and I'm embarrassed to be part of it. And when that happened, like one of the people who's in my world said, well, you should go check out Bobby. And it's a funny example of that happening, but it happens to me over and over again because people have this sense that Bobby's different. Bobby cares about his people. And that can have a huge implication. And so what I'm telling you is those are the things that can happen. And look, I could give you monetary numbers, but again, I can't exactly say, hey, well, I gave this and it led to that, because that's not how it works. But what I can tell you is that once I started giving, that is what changed things. That's what put me on the map. And I've found that the more I give, the more I get. Now, I don't give to get. I don't do that for a second. I give because I think it's the right thing to do. But I've found that I haven't found a limit to giving yet. And so I keep doing it. And it's become one of my core values. So last year in March of 2019 is when I started giving away my privacy policy. So instead of charging for that legal template, which most people do, most entrepreneurs charge $300 on average, is kind of what I've found among my competitors. Some are $200, some are $400, but it's around $300 they charge for that template. And by the way, of all of the legal templates I sell, that is the only one that is legally required. That's it. That's the only one that is legally required. And I give it away for free. And I started doing that last year. And at the time, I told the mastermind members that I was in a mastermind, a paid mastermind. I told them, I said, don't do that. That's crazy. They thought I was insane. I said, I don't care. I'm doing it anyway. And that's the kind of thing that I've done. And we started this episode. Before I jumped into the content, I was talking about BADA Online Marketing University. Think about how preposterous that idea is. My team and I are creating an entire university that will be filled with courses that we're giving away for free. I mean, it really is a preposterous idea. It is so preposterous that we announced that fact. We announced what it was and that it was free at my live virtual event, which happened, I don't know, about a week and a half ago. And this virtual event was full of people who are some of my most ardent supporters who had heard me talk about radical giving, who knew that radical giving is one of the things I said. And I was teasing with them. I announced on day 2 that we had this BADA Online Marketing University. I played with them about it. I didn't tell them. I didn't tell them until the last session on day 3 of my event that it was free. And when I did, people couldn't believe it. Even people who were in my world, who know me better than anything else, who literally I had spent 2.5 days talking about how like the death by 1,000 courses drove me nuts, how I didn't like what was happening, where I didn't see these things, where I'm a radical giver, where I talked about all these things. I gave them a book, my favorite book, The Go Giver, which is about being a giver, and they couldn't see it coming because it's just that preposterous. It's that radical of an idea that I would do something this big, that I would take what most people are saying, create courses and sell them, and that's where you're going to make all your money. That's what most people are saying, but it's this thing that has led to a change in people, and I've already seen it. I've had so many people who were there who have been inspired. They have been inspired to give more, to serve more. And so I view it as I'm creating this movement and I'm helping people in the process. But I'm creating a movement of entrepreneurs who say, we have a passion for what we want to do. I want to serve my people first. That is what I truly want in this world. And we're going to make the world a better place as a result. And so that's why it's not a preposterous idea for me, because I get to say to myself, I don't even have to say it to anyone else, all the good that all of these people are going to do in the world because maybe they were motivated by that one act of mine I had some small part in. And so that's what I care about. And that's why I do it. So with that, I hope I've inspired you. And now I'm going to do kind of my giving report and my giving goals. At the beginning of the year, I said my goal was to give away $4 million in value. And I used the value of $300 for template library. That's kind of what I think about. And so that was kind of my goal, was at the end of this year, I wanted to have given away $4 million worth of legal templates. And again, a pretty preposterous idea. Well, we haven't quite gotten there yet with privacy policies, but we have blown past $4 million in giving without question. To date, in 2020, we have given away 13,000 privacy policy templates. That works out to $3.9 million in value using that $300 value. But beyond that, I made a decision this year to allow Amy Porterfield, who has been a big part of my success, to include my online course terms and conditions template, which I charge $247 for. Literally, people buy that day in and day out. People will buy that from me in her course, Digital Course Academy. And it's included for people who bought in the past and bought in the future. She's had over 10,000 people in there. And I did some math, and by my looking at what I think the numbers are, that's another $3 million in value that we gave away. So that means we've given $6.9 million in value right there. And that's in legal templates. And I've given templates to some other people to include as bonuses, et cetera. So I look at it and I say, well, we surpassed my $4 million. We definitely did that. But then there's Bomb U, which we're already pushing 500 people in. We just announced it about a week ago. And again, I don't know what you would say the value of that is, but it's a lot. So there's a lot of value there. So although I didn't hit my numbers based on privacy policy donations, I missed by $100,000. I've given away a lot more than I anticipated, and a lot more I expected, and a lot more than the goal I set. So that's 2020 in the books. Now let's talk about 2021. We have set a couple of pretty ambitious goals. On the privacy policy, our goal is to give away 20,000 privacy policies in 2021. So again, that's a 50% increase, a little more than 50% increase on how many we gave away this year. So we'll do that. I mean, we do that with ads by talking about it, et cetera. So we'll continue to do that. We'll continue to kind of increase that and increase the number of people getting that. But the more ambitious goal for us is Bomb U. Our goal is that at the end of next year, we will have 30,000 members in Bomb U. So that's 29,500 people that we're going to try to get into this free program from where we are right now. And that's going to be a bit of a gargantuan undertaking. Just to give you a sense, I mean, my list right now is like 8,000 people that I actively market to. It's not like I have a huge list. I make a lot of money without a huge list because I take the time to give, by the way. That's a little piece of hint there to you. But to get 30,000 is going to take some work. And so we have plans. We're going to, do Facebook ads. We're literally going to pay to give this thing away to people. We're going to continuously make it better in the coming year. I mentioned that right now it has a single course, but we will be adding a messaging course, a copywriting course, a list building course, a legal foundations course. We're going to add a course creation course, a beta launch course, a storytelling course, an email foundations course, I think I said storytelling, but if I didn't, storytelling course, and then a content marketing course. We're going to do all of those things. We're going to add those in. And here's the cool thing. When I announced the program at my live event, I had some people who are in my community who also serve entrepreneurs who said they were willing to contribute a course. So we're hoping to do that. We're hoping to add like a finance course from one of the people in my community who teaches finance for entrepreneurs. We're going to try to find other people who can come in and have the same giving heart as me to make it better. So our hope, and by the way, just so you know, my team and I, and Katie, my number two, my integrator, we talked about it and are planning for 2021. We're still working on all the details of the plan, but part of the plan really is that we're freeing up a lot of my time to work on those courses, to build it out, to make Bomb U better. And again, That's kind of preposterous. Like, we don't have, like, when we're looking at what my responsibilities are next year, my responsibilities, my tasks, the things that I'm really going to be digging in as the head, the leader of the business, aren't things to actively promote or generate revenue. It's to improve our free product. That's like my biggest thing. And that gives you a sense of how much we believe in this idea of radical giving. And so that's part of it. And then another part, in addition to the ads and making it better, is we're going to be screaming it from the rooftops. We have retained someone to get me booked, an agency to help me get booked on podcasts. And, we didn't go with the inexpensive ones who just randomly send things, but went with a higher end one who has relationships. And so we're going to be working on that. I'm going to be working on getting myself on a podcast with my friends, with other people I know. By the way, if you're listening to this and you serve entrepreneurs and you want me on your podcast, send an email. You can email me, bobby@bobbyklink.com, and we can chat about it. I would love to come on. I love chatting with people and serving entrepreneurs. And so we're going to scream this thing from the rooftops, talking about Bomb You and how this is a cause that we are behind, that we are moving towards, and all of those things so that we really can get people excited about this. So those are the things we're working on because we have ambitious goals. And our ambitious goals are to have an impact, to change the world, to have a ripple effect, to change the lives and businesses of entrepreneurs, because I truly believe that entrepreneurship is one of the powers of good in this world, and I want to serve people with that. So that's my plan for 2021 when it comes to giving. It's ambitious, it's kind of crazy, but it's what we're doing. And it all stems from a decision I made, as I'm recording this, about 3 years ago, to be a radical giver. I thank my lucky stars that I happened to be in church that week, in spite of the fact that I had my in-laws in town and we were almost, we were running late. We almost didn't make it. I thank my lucky stars that even in spite of the fact that my mind was spinning about what was happening in my business, that message made it through. Because I know that there was a lot of chances that I wouldn't have found that message and I wouldn't have found my calling to be a radical giver. But what I can tell you is that choosing to be a radical giver has made all the difference for me in my life and my business. So my call to action to you today is to ask yourself, how can you be a radical giver? How can you find ways to give joyously and without expectation in your business, in your life, anywhere and everywhere? When you adopt that approach, it will change you and it will change your business. That's it. I'll see you again next week. That's it for this episode of the Certified Badass Online Marketing Podcast. Make sure to tune in next time. And in the meantime, go out and build the badass business of your dreams.